What's up, y'all? It's yours truly, Kevin Key. Kevin Key Speaks. And what am I going to talk about today? How about the glow up workout plan? You know, in today's times, we hear the term glow up all the time. Man, that person glowed up. Wow, this person just elevated. They transformed. And it seems like they just came out of nowhere. Well, I'm going to tell you today, it wasn't just out of nowhere. There was a specific place that they went. And so I'll tell you my story about what happened with me. And it's called the island, right? So I remember when I was going through a lot of different things, God was like, it's time for you to get on the island. And I said, what does that look like? That looked like me being in my studio every day, praying, turning on praise and worship music, meditating, getting in the Word, getting off social media for a season, and also limiting access. What is limiting access? Limiting access is basically when you go in and you don't bring in anything new, and you make sure that what is already coming in is the essentials. Because what the problem is and why you had to go to the island in the first place is there was a overload of competing interests that were in your life. And a lot of times we've said yes to too many things that did not serve us, that did not benefit us. Yes to too many things that we just did simply because somebody thought that that's what we should be doing, or we're operating on old information that we just thought we just got to fall on the sword and we just got to make it happen and it's just going to have to be what it's going to have to be. Well, none of that is sustainable. You reach the point of overload, or you've created a situation where you've enabled people to abuse you. Now, that word abuse is really hard to swallow sometimes because mostly we think abuse is something physical or sexual. Well, it doesn't have to be that. It could be relational. It could be employers abusing you. It could be friends. It could be relationships. It could be you abusing you through all the commitments that you've given, yes to, that you should never have done. And so it creates this bottleneck that everything is pushing and competing for your energy. And ultimately, you're about to break. And so for me, I had to go to the island. And an island is like a great reset because you're at a place in your life where everything is out of order. And so to do that, you've got to go to a place that there's only one signal coming out. And for me, I had to get into my word. Luckily, at the time when I was on the island, there was a fast going on at my church. So every day I was there at 6 o'clock in the morning at church praying on the altar, just letting it all out. That's the other thing about the island. You have to be unapologetically open and honest. The island is not a place where you blame everybody else. The island is the place where you introspect and you start to peel back the layers on who you are, what's happened, all of the things. I outline this process where we say, one, you have to acknowledge the abuse, what has happened, right? You have to be able to sit with it and look at what has changed after the fact. You're going to have to grieve the old you because you are no longer the person that you were. Then you get the opportunity to pick who you want to become and how you want to move forward. So while you're on the island, that is your opportunity to allow your nervous system to normalize. What does that mean? When we're out in the world, going here, going there, doing all of these things, trying to balance, trying to maintain, there's so much stimulation coming from outside forces that it causes our brain to be like this. And it's so tight and it's moving so fast that it's basically damaging itself. So on the island, as you go and say, hey friends, I love y'all, but for the next month, I got to take some time to myself. I can't have these type of conversations that are going to be not life-giving, not positive, not helping me to move forward because I got to renormalize my brain. And so for me, one of the things that had to normalize was getting used to peace and quiet. We're so I guess, bombarded every day with all of these voices coming to us, telling us what to eat, where to go, what to dress, how to do this, how to do that, all of these things that we kind of lose what our own voice sounds like in a sea of everybody else's agenda. So the main thing is being able to sit with yourself. And the first thing that you'll notice when you're sitting with yourself is it'll start to play back events through a different lens. And through that lens, you get the opportunity to see multiple perspectives. Once again, this is not the time to blame. This is the time to reflect and to listen. Listen to your body, listen to your thoughts, and be able to process everything. Now, here's the thing about that. It's very difficult because a lot of times when you process them through the lens of healing, you'll realize that you were not the victim. You played a part. Now, that's not to say that the other person did not hurt you. That's not to say you were not betrayed. That's not to say you were not taken advantage of. That's not to say that any negative thing or any negative feeling that you have about the situation is not true or factual. But it is to say that you acknowledge how you played your part in the events and what led up to them, and take the opportunity to take the accountability for your part. Now, that's truly freeing and terrifying at the same time, because once you start to unravel that thing, you're going to start looking at other events and you're going to start replaying them and see how you played a part in multiple things. And the great thing about doing that is you're going to be able to see different perspectives in other people's lives too now. Times where you just thought, I can't believe they would do this. I would never do that. You'll see the parallels in things that you've done similarly, but could not process it because of the lens of pain or trauma or hurt that you were looking at it through. As you start to witness and recognize your part, you'll gain true empathy for other people and their circumstances. Grieving is an important process, but grieving is not a lifestyle. It is simply being able to, once again, process the person who you were, acknowledge the things that happened, choose a different path of who you want to become, and then putting a plan in place for how you want to get there. The island helps you to do that because there's not all of this extra stimulus that's distracting you from you. And let's just be honest. It's very few times now that we will sit with ourselves because it's too painful. It's too hard. So we'll turn on some music, or we'll watch a movie, or we'll scroll, or we'll listen to somebody else's life, or we'll do anything that we can to not sit with ourselves. And the island is the place to start training yourself to sit with yourself. Don't hide from the voices. Don't run from the voices, but listen to your life and your story. A lot of times as well, the things that's happened to us in our past, we remember them through the eyes of the person that it happened to. And what do you mean by that, Kevin? What I mean is, let's say the event happened 10 years ago. At the time that it happened, the pain and trauma and stuff that you witnessed, that was the imprintation of your memory of that event. And most people hold on to that memory of the event. But guess what? Every day we're constantly growing and we're gaining new information and new experiences. So it's time now to look back on the event 10 years ago with the eyes that you have today and the information you have today, and process it through that. Don't be a slave to the version of yourself that was traumatized in that moment and reacted and responded according to how they felt then. Because how you feel now and the person you are now may be very different. Give yourself room to be able to grow beyond your grief. So how does this relate to the island? If you think about an island, most times they're out in the middle of somewhere else where they're not connected to the other land or any of those things. It takes a lot of energy and effort to go to an island. But once you're on that island, the only thing that really you have is what is on the island, which goes back to the things that are your basic rudimentary things that you had before you added all this other stuff onto your life. The island is the place that you get back used to your center, especially, Christ. Like, God is the center, right? So with all the competing things in the world outside the island, we get pushed away from our default, which actually is our base relationship with God. So the island is the time to get back connected with God so that when you're in your quiet time, you can actually hear him. When we're not on the island, once again, so much is competing. But on the island, there's no competition. It's just you and God. And this is where God can minister and tell you other things about yourself that you could not hear. And this is the part, another one that's really difficult, because when you start, getting read by God, the proud person that you thought you were starts to get broken down a few notches, right? Because you realize you're not as puffed up as you thought you were. That was a facade that you created in order to not be hurt or to hide the pain. A lot of us are wearing masks, and the island is the place to take the mask off and be real with yourself about who you are. And as you do that, it's like starting at the bottom. But to get to the bottom, you got to peel the layers off, right? So once you peel all the layers off and you're back at the bottom, now you can start to build yourself up with something solid. And the word is the solid part. Creating a new routine, reallocating your time based on what's really important, not all these superficial things. And then once you start to do that, right, then you can say, okay, who am I? Okay? Because you got to answer that question. Who are you now? Not who were you, who are you now? After you've moved past your grieving, who are you now? What does the person that you are now need? Because sometimes the stuff we've been feeding who we are is actually the stuff that we're feeding the person who we were needed, but not what the person who we are needs. So we've got to address that. What does the person now need? For me, I needed to understand who I am. What's my calling? What's my purpose? What gives me energy? What gives me life? Lean more into that. And one of the things that I did was I joined the production team at church. I love production. And now I get to use my tools in the church. That's a no-brainer. But this time it's a I get to, not a I have to. You got to find things that are I get to and not the obligation. The obligation is what weighs you down. You got to be around people that want you, not just need you. Because truth be told, we're around a bunch of people that need us, but don't necessarily want us. And who is us? Us is the person that we are. They need the resource we bring, but they don't necessarily want the person that comes along with it. So you got to be able to find environments and people that authentically want you, and you get to be around, or you get to be in the relationship. They get to be in a relationship with you. You want to be around them. They want to be around you. So that now you're having a symbiotic relationship and not a parasitic. But you've got to use the island to find out what is the stuff that was killing you and what is the stuff that was giving you life. And as you start to learn these things, once you get off the island, you know, I ain't doing that no more, or I'm going to add more of that in my life. But you can only do that when you're in a place of quiet so that you can truly process. And what does process mean? Process means being able to sit with the decisions that you are making and accept everything that could possibly go along with it, but also being able to sit with the decisions that you made in the past and process or sit with or analyze or sift through everything that happened, the things that you wanted to happen but didn't happen, the things that didn't want to happen but actually happened, and be able to see how that impacted you, and then be able to move forward knowing now I have this information, I can make better decisions. So the island is the recalibration place that you can use for how to move once you get back out into the world. So after you've got your recalibration, after you've learned and peeled back the layers, you've decided who you want to be, now you can move off the island and slowly introduce some of these different signals, some of these different quote unquote distractions or people or tasks or tools. But now with the understanding of what your capacity is and what works for you and what does not work for you. Now you've analyzed the costs of each decision and what each one and how it impacts you positively or negatively, because you've processed it. And now you know for you what this decision will cost you versus another one. And you can add up if it's worth it or not. And this time, instead of blindly doing stuff and not understanding why it's draining the mess out of you, or why your health is going down, or why you're gaining weight, or why you have all these anxiety attacks, or why you're panicking, why you're stressed, you can say, yeah, I know what that is. That's too much of this. I'll give you a great example. I can't even eat strawberry blizzards anymore. Now when I go eat them, because of the sugar, it makes my heart palpitate. So I don't eat them. But I had to learn that. Now that I know that, I don't keep eating them because I know the cost is too high. Same thing. When you were on the island and you processed, when I did this, it impacted me this way. When I made this decision, it hurt me that way. When I hang with this person, these are the consequences. Now you know when you go back out into the world, hey, I'm not doing that because I know what that cost me and I'm not willing to pay that price. So the glow up now, when you see these people back in the world and they look elevated, they look fresh, they look renewed, they look happy, they have joy about them. It's like, what happened? They reset. And now they're moving intentionally and they know what works for them and what doesn't. And they're saying, I'm not going to introduce that into my life because I like the way I feel when I have all of this stuff stripped off of me. I like the way I move when I don't have all of these things attached to me. I like the way I move and how I act when I'm around people that give me life and not tear me down. That's what you're witnessing. You're witnessing a person who has gone down to be by themselves, put the work in to find out who they are and how they work and how they tick and how they think. And they've created a system that they're not going to allow anybody else to come in and destroy after they put all this hard work into building a system of tools and choices and decisions that are going to enable them to live the life that they always wanted to live. That's the glow up workout. That's the glow up routine. Stripping it all down and building it back up with the understanding and intentionality that you and who you want to become is not a negotiable thing. That's what it is. So you have the ability to be the person that you want to be. But you're going to have to learn who that person is, Learn what it costs you to be the person you are now. Figure out if it's worth continuing to pay and be that person, or if you're going to give your new self a shot. This is yours truly, Kevin Key. Kevin Key Speaks. The Glow Up Workout Plan works, but you're going to have to put in the work. You're going to have to cut all the things out, and you're going to have to go on the island, and you got to be willing to disappear for a little while. I know it's hard. I know it's tough. People are going to question you. But when you come back, you're going to be bigger and better than ever. And you're going to love that new you. Kevin Key Speaks, y'all. See you on the next one. Actually, I'll see you when you glow up. Keep it crispy as well. Later.